All right, welcome to day 5 of water only in my fasting. Good to see you guys today, and yeah, actually, I'll probably just wait a little bit for people to get connected, but, not long 'cause I just gotta get into this today. Quick update on how I'm feeling. Things are going fine. Actually, I think I'm more energized today than I was yesterday, which is good, because I didn't really sleep as well as I should have. But, like I said, that's something that I experienced last time, and so I kind of expected that. But doing all right. I am actually as far as I think we talked early on in our process about how when you do a water only fast especially, that you tend to shed a lot of inflammation and you're, obviously burning through fat stores, something that we were talking about with Kevin. But what tends to happen is it's almost a freaky amount of weight difference. So yeah, so for me, it's about 10 pounds in the last 5 days. But when you realize that that's all, excess inflammation weight, that sort of thing, it actually makes me want to do fasting more often. In fact, I'm very seriously considering doing this on a quarterly basis. Maybe not water only every quarter, but definitely walking through a fast every at the beginning of every quarter this year. So I'm pretty well set on that, but we'll see how that goes. So, if you are not part of the Facebook group, let me put that link up here real quick. It's facebook.com/groups/11 talents 2021 JAN for January. That is going to be closing for enrollment soon. So if you want to be part of this fast, there's still time. I mean, there's no set time frame that you should be fasting. I'm giving it 10 days as a group. But that doesn't mean you can't do shorter or longer fasting. It doesn't matter, what kind of fasting you're doing. I just encourage you to join us if that's something you're interested in and you feel that would be beneficial to you. So I wanted to, and yeah, par for the course today. I did not prepare myself well, and so I once again need to uh, access something to put on the screen while I'm actually talking. So I'm just going to keep vamping because that's what the pros do, right? And launch the wrong program, of course, because get a little click happy on there. How's it going? So how's it going out there? So if you're joining me live, you can say something in the comments, and I'll see that. Actually, I see that some people were with me live, but that went away, and I'm not sure why. Guess I'm not very interesting when I say things like, what am I doing? So I get it. It's okay. I'll see you in the replay. But I wanted to run through, uh, yes, where is it? This slide right here. Apologize. Current slide. Share that screen. I'll put this up here. Okay, so this is we talked about this before. If you saw a previous live with me, this is a slide that'll be familiar to you. But this is a verse out of Ecclesiastes that I thought was really key, and so I wanted to share this with you here. This is Ecclesiastes 1 verses 1 through 6. Ship your grain across the sea. After many days, you may receive a return. Invest in 7 ventures, yes, in 8. You do not know what disaster may become upon the land. And last time I shared this, I also shared that, well, frankly, that's very true. We don't know what disaster may come upon the land. And we don't know what number of disasters may come across the land. My heart is very burdened at times with watching the way things are playing out in the United States right now, watching the way things are playing out in the UK right now, and other places as well, and just very much I can't help but be concerned, maybe not worried per se, but it's a reminder that we don't know what calamity may come, either as a disaster of nature or a disaster of man or both. And this is something we just don't know. So the interesting part about this, how it starts, the ship or grain across the sea. So in other words, don't just be thinking of your own little area here. And this is something that I have been thinking a lot about in the last 4 or 5 years. Interestingly enough, I have had more, but well, I shouldn't say more. I need to look at this again. But as far as book sales, I tend to sell more internationally than I do here in the United States. And so that has been fascinating to me that I could be in a position of being able to sell books across the entire nation, whereas in years past that would have been possible. So I'm kind of living this out. It may not be grain, but of course you get it. So invest in 7 ventures, yes, in 8. This means that because we don't know what calamities may come, we do need to be very much aware that we don't want to put all our eggs in one basket, so to say. We want to be very much willing to kind of spread that out a little bit. And this is something that I've talked before about as someone who thinks in terms of investments, kind of not very wisely at times. I kind of tend to not do that well, but nonetheless, um, it's something that I very much am aware of my shortcomings there. But when it comes to investing in ventures, that doesn't necessarily mean with your finances. It also means with your efforts. And in fact, I think investing with your efforts yields higher returns almost every single time than in just investing your money. I'll give you an example of this. Let's say you were to invest in some stocks, or whatever, gold or Bitcoin or whatever you're going to invest in. If you compare the rate of return for that versus, like, say, working for a company, even just going to work at like a fast food restaurant, for example, you will find that the reward for your effort has a much bigger payout than the investment. So when it comes to thinking more like an entrepreneur, one of the things you need to do is think in terms of, okay, where can I diversify this so that there are a combination of things that I'm not working out actively and things I am working at actively. There's a community I belong to. It's Pat Flynn's Smart Passive Income, and that is a great group of individuals actually. And I need to see how to if that's open for enrollment right now. I don't know. I'm one of those founding members. Just I wanted to check it out and see how this is going to be and what I could contribute. And so I lead a mastermind in that group now. So anyway, that community is part of just kind of what Pat Flynn has started with a blog, and that has become a lot more podcast and YouTube channel and things like that on the concept of being smart about passive income. Now, the interesting thing about that is what tends to be talked about more often than not is not really truly passive income, because a lot of these people are talking about running businesses. And so it is an interesting um, dilemma, I guess you could say. But a lot of passive income is not as passive as you might think, but it can be recurring. And that's the key here. So let's say, for example, you want to Well, going back to yesterday when I was talking about acres of diamonds and that concept of finding ways to serve people that your experience, your knowledge, your passion can can serve other people. One of those ways can be teaching, for example. And so you could teach in person, that's something that people do. You could teach classes one-on-one, but a lot of people these days, and myself included actually, will record their teaching and make that available online. So the work is done once, but the income becomes passive because I'm not having to redo it every single time. So, in terms of that return, is it as much as it would be if I was teaching a class every single time? No, probably not. I can charge more if I'm teaching in person than I can for an online course, typically. I'm working on that, but generally speaking, I can do that. Now, interestingly enough, this ship your grain across the sea thing stood out to me as well, because in terms of things like having an online business, this has been really fascinating to me because initially when I thought about this, I'll admit that I really didn't consider that there'd be much market internationally for what I do. I was completely wrong. It really does fascinate me just to plot out how many, not just email addresses or whatever, but how many customers I have from various countries around the world. It 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 really, I actually do not have a count right now. It's more than 30 countries that I have customers in right now, which is fascinating. But I didn't have to go to those countries to get those customers. I didn't have to go to teach them. They're able to benefit from my knowledge in exchange for a value, which is currency, like we talked about before. Those are those certificates of appreciation, that's what money is. But the cool thing here is that I don't have to go through the usual efforts that I would have to bless them with what I know. And that's really, really kind of the point here, is that it may not be completely passive. I still have to do things like make sure things are running and marketing and showing up for question and answer sessions and things like that. So it's not completely passive in terms of that. It's completely hands off, but it is something that can be done in the background and is, because it's international, I'm getting notifications in the middle of the night that there may be a sale. I've actually, that's one of the reasons why I had to turn notifications off on my phone when I'm sleeping, because honestly, that would happen. That there'd be notifications that I'd made a new sale in the middle of the night, and so of reasons to have to turn your notifications off, I'd say that's one of the best in the world. But nonetheless, that is a reality, and so, but like I said, it's not necessarily one to one as far as you enter into a venture like this and it's earning just as much as your primary venture or your primary day job or whatever you want to say. So that's something to keep in mind. But there's wisdom here in investing in 7 or even 8 ventures, because you just don't know which is what's going to happen. You don't know when things are going to shift. Actually, one of the things I became very concerned about in teaching the technology that I do is becoming obsolete. My knowledge no longer being valid, and that's a very real thing. And that's something that does happen when you're in this space. And so I knew that I needed to have other mechanisms, not just this one thing that I'm teaching. And so that takes a lot of effort, don't get me wrong, but it's something that I've developed over the last 3 to 4 years, is those multiple different ways, whether it be consulting, whether it be teaching, whether it be books, whether it be um, doing stuff within a community of like having a membership site, that sort of thing. There's various ways to go about this. And so my encouragement to you is to think of different things that you could be doing. And and what this would look like. And so what I wanted to do is actually really quick. I just wanted to go through the why a little bit more here. Um, so returning to Ecclesiastes, the if the clouds are full of water, they pour rain on the earth. Whether a tree falls to the south or to the north, in the place where it falls, there it will lie. In other words, you can affect that. Whoever watches the wind will not plant. Whoever looks at the clouds will not reap. In other words, if you are always looking for the current conditions, you're not going to take action. If you're looking at what's going on in Washington, D.C. right now, all that's going to happen is you're going to be glued to your phone or your computer or your TV set, watching for the next thing that's going to happen and wondering how it's going to affect you. And this is how, well, I mean, there's a lot of things that happen with this, and there's a lot of things that have been very unfortunate about how people's realities have been kind of tilted lately. It's very sad to see, but something that I actually have been concerned about for many years. But the thing that's really tragic about it is how many people I know that will hold off on what they're doing because of these things. Now, I'm also going to say something here that, you know, again, I'm speaking to a Christian audience. Keep this in mind. But one of my frustrations is when I hear people say things like, well, the moon is in, you know, whatever state, so I shouldn't do anything right now. Really? Really? This is like this doesn't really this matches up more with this warning in Ecclesiastes than anything. It's like if you're concerned about things like that, yeah, you're not going to take action. You're going to remain as you are, and so yeah. So for me and my house, the Bible's our reference here. So um, if that offends, mm, yeah, I don't know if I'm sorry. I don't like sorry, and I don't like offending. I don't like sorry, I don't like being offended. So I just kind of don't really deal in those kind of things. But nonetheless, it does concern me when I see people that hold off on their potential because of what's going on in the world or what's perceived in the stars or whatever. It all points down to you not believing in your venture is what it really means to me. You don't know the path of the wind. You don't know how the body is formed in a mother's womb, so you cannot understand the work of God, the maker of all things. So your seed in the morning and at evening, let your hands not be idle. In other words, just because the sun has gone down doesn't mean the work necessarily needs to stop. There's other things you can be doing. And this is kind of I'm not saying be a workaholic. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's more of focusing your time on the right thing at the right time. In other words, he's not saying don't sow your seed in the evening, but at the same time, don't just be lazy. You know, rest is one thing, being lazy is another. And let's be honest, our culture is very much centered around self-satisfaction these days. And so we're more likely to watch the news or, you know, watch television and just that mind numbing, whatever it is, Netflix, Disney Channel, whatever. It's all, let's be honest, designed to make our minds not be working actively. And so that is not always healthy. Now I'm a big fan of taking purposeful time and being entertained. It's a good thing. But the point here is that if you want to do more, then you need to do more. Uh, I'm not telling people to just quit what they're doing and go pursue a passive income. Because, like I said, in the beginning, that would be disastrous because the reality is you will not make as much. And I'm I'm walking in this right now. I'll be completely honest and blunt with you that 2021 was a year of taking really big risks for me, and one of those actually did not pay off very well. And the problem was that I had kind of not paid attention to another area of my work that is has been a primary for me for decades now. And that has kind of slid off to nothing now. Well, not nothing, but very little. And so that stream of income is now, you know, almost gone. And I need to now focus on these other ventures. Well, the problem is these other ventures don't yet pay like my, if you want to call it a day job, like that would. And so what you need to be doing is developing one thing on the side until it is actually to that point of generating enough income for you to actually leave another venture. And it, there's other reasons for me too. I mean, there's a lot of it that comes down to my, you know, my heart for things and what I'm passionate about and how those have kind of shifted over the years. And so that is a factor here too. But anyway, let's go over. I'm gonna actually close that out, and let's go over some things that you could do to invest in multiple ventures. So I mentioned things like teaching what you know. I love this concept because, well, one, it's more possible now than it ever has been, and there's so many different ways to do it because we all learn in different ways. And so there's various things that you can do that are some are very easy, some are more difficult, some require having what we would call an audience or a platform, and some don't. So it really depends on what you want to do and what you're hoping to accomplish. In terms of income, there's some things I'll say about that as well. There's certain things that are just inherently more profitable than others just because of the nature of them and the work that's required to get them done. So I mentioned online courses, and I actually like online courses a lot because that's a good way to that you can develop that in your evenings. You can let that be the thing that's like not letting your hands be idle during the evenings, or whatever time you're not doing your day job. You could be working on something like that, and so there are good resources out there for learning to do that, and I can even probably teach some people at this point as well. But bottom line is that that is something that doesn't have to be a full-time effort, but it can yield ongoing returns if done well. Another things there's certain things like that too. Some things that are just more subscription based, like a membership site where you can actually have a group of people that you're teaching on a regular basis to get to a certain transformational point. And there's actually, if that's something that interests you, by the way, let me know. There's an opportunity that's coming up here to learn from the people that taught me, and so that's something that if that's your one thing, if that's the one thing you want to pursue for your first venture, let me know, and that's something I can get you hooked up well with. But that's aside. You can message me on that separately. But there's some other things too that I've kind of dabbled in and have some expertise in as far as that goes. Then and some of them like books, for example. Books are fascinating because they are a lot of work without actually a lot of return by themselves. And this is something I'm very thankful for Chandler Bolt and the self publishing school team that taught me that this you can look at it more like a draw for people. It's a way for people to be more in relationship with you. In other words, unless you're unless you're the next J.K. Rowling, you're not going to make a lot of money on a book on its own. And so there needs to be other things that are associated with that. And so that's that. multiple ventures kind of thing coming into play here. But I mean, I actually enjoy writing for some reason. Um, ooh, focus went way out. What's going on there? So much for that staying put, huh? But in terms of things like that, yeah, the nice thing about books is that they are once they're out there, they can be really passive. I mean, it's not a lot of marketing and effort required to keep them up because it's already written, it's on the page, it's there. And so it's just a matter of various booksellers selling it. And so once the work is done, it's just gonna continue to sell as long as it's relevant. And so in terms of that, I'll be completely transparent that, with two books out there right now, it's not like I'm making several $100s a month. Well, it might be a couple hundred a month, but it's not substantial. It's not enough to replace a day job. I would have to have multiple books out there to do that, and that's something I'm looking at. It's something I'm very seriously considering is writing a lot more books, but not necessarily for the purpose of that being a passive income, but more of like a additional venture that is something that's driving. Because again, some people like reading, some people like seeing you face to face, some people like learning from you at their own pace, but kind of doing a combination. So it really is finding people where they are. There's other things like podcasts, for example, and right now I know there's uh, podcasts are interesting because there's a lot of them out there at this point. It's becoming more and more saturated, but at the same time, once you connect with an audience, that's a method of success that can drive forward and kind of amplify a lot of other things you're doing, and draw attention to a lot of things you're doing. So the podcast itself doesn't necessarily earn you any income unless you have like sponsors and things like that, which also is a reality. That's something you can do. But having these multiple ventures is really important if you're doing something like that, because it's a bit of effort to keep up with the podcast. Trust me, it's it's a lot of being in your own head too. Trust me. For me, I actually really struggle with quality when it comes to podcasts. I very much get a stickler for when I'm doing things live. I tend to a lot, and it's something that I've never really been able to get myself fully detrained for. And when you do a podcast and you have a bunch of that, it is very off-putting. So I like to edit those out and things like that. And it takes time and effort. And I haven't yet learned good ways to either use tools to get that done better or outsource that and have them use the tools, blah, 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 blah. It's hard to do something like that when there's not other things that podcast is driving towards. But it is a great way to start. I will say that it's a great way to start teaching people, because it really is just a matter of, if you can get out of your own way, then there's literally a way to just, you know, record your voice on your phone and release it as a podcast. So there's a lot of things like that. YouTube is another way to share information with the world, and I do mean the world, and it's something that I do as well. But again, not necessarily as anything as a monetization strategy. A lot of YouTubers out there do make some money, but it's not it's not a lot. So the smart ones are actually pointing people towards their other ventures. And I wonder if this is going to work today. I think we have a kitty for kitty cam. Let's see if it works. Nope. Oh, it's just not wanting to cooperate today or yesterday or any day, I guess. So kitty cam another day. But I was gonna say about that. You see how I just get distracted? Cute things, they distract me. It happens. But let's talk about some other things that aren't necessarily what you would be giving your information to or your passion towards, because there's more than I mentioned, but those are some of the ones that really stand out. Those are the most common. and the ones that I've been spending a lot of time with. There's also other kinds of investing that you can do. Like, I know a lot of people that are into real estate, and I I don't know if right now is the best time to get into real estate, to be honest with you. A lot of the people that I know that are into that right now are really finding a bit of frustration with that. Is that it's becoming so hard to get properties, and the the market is much more towards the buyer right now. Which, if you're into real estate, is great if you're selling. So good time to sell, I guess. But that's most people get into real estate to buy a property and either flip it to sell it, or they buy a property to rent it out to others. And so this can be done residentially or commercially. And there's a lot of people that have made a lot of money doing this, and it is something that I am very much have my eye on, but it's just not feasible right now because there is some startup capital and things like that, and banks don't like me as much as I think they should. But that nonetheless, that's something that is a form of another venture that you can be doing. And depending on what you're doing with it, there's a level of effort there that takes some focus of your time. But again, it's something that probably can be very compatible with other things that you're doing. And so as a venture on the side, that's really not bad. There's some people that get into like stock trading or currency tradings and that sort of thing. That's another potential way to have a side venture that does generate some revenue. My problem with that is that it doesn't really serve anyone, you know. So it's kind of one of the things where it's just like I'm okay with that as a side venture, but it it really isn't like a life mission. And what I should say here is that when it comes to the work of your hands, whether it be passive or active, doesn't really matter for this. If you are doing something, you should be passionate about it in my mind. You should have a why behind it. Like if you're in real estate and you can provide stable housing for someone, for example, or do work on a house to make it better so that it can be sold, you're you're moving things forward. Now, most people that invest in stocks aren't looking at like specific companies. They're usually just looking more at metrics than anything else. They're taking that sort of thing out of it. In fact, to be successful, from everything I've ever heard, you pretty much have to. So that is something that can be a little bit of a challenge. But what I'll say about that is that from the Christian standpoint anyway, making that your primary work and purpose is difficult to say that that'd be your if that's your calling, if that's what you were really called to do, then doing that full time would be better. Is I guess what I'm saying here. If that really is what your calling and passion is, that's your zone of genius, then yeah, you should probably be doing that more full time, not part time. So since we're talking more about side ventures that you could start as your first thing to do in addition to your day job. Now, like I said, that's something where I'm looking a lot at currency trading at the moment, just because there's some elements of, especially in the cryptocurrency markets, that I can see some weathering a storm in this as well, because there's some concerns I have about how the United States is spending money and what that does to the currency, for example. And in order to be prepared for my family and to serve others, there's that notion of I might need to be taking steps here and investing in these other things. Now, a lot of that is going to be trading back and forth and trying to raise that up, but because that's always going to be the point, right? But it does make some sense. And I do actually know some people that are into like day trading and things like that, that use that money for a lot of charitable work and things like that. There are a lot of trusts and things like that out there that are a positive thing, or that can be used as a positive thing. So I'm not saying don't do it, but what I'm saying is that anything you're doing as these works will be more successful if they are your passion. If it's just an opportunity you're chasing, then I don't know if that's a great idea. I just don't think that that's really what is going to be very successful. If it's something you're interested in, that's different. But if it's something you're just chasing because it looks like a great opportunity, then there's more likelihood that you'll be drawn into the emotion of that and ultimately fail. So that may not be the best. But as a small part of that, 7 or 8 ventures, yeah, that might not be a bad thing. Just as long as that's not something that's becomes all consuming if it's not really your passion. You don't want to work in things that are going to take up a lot of your time and worry. If it's something that yeah, I didn't say this. I should have said this very much earlier on. If it's if any venture is causing you worry, that doesn't make it a very good venture. That actually makes it, by definition, a bad venture. Don't work at things that don't work for you. Should put that up on a poster somewhere. Don't work at things that don't work for you. So yeah, so there's other things that can be done from a passive standpoint, and there's other things that can be done from a active standpoint too. For example, a lot of people have been, and I don't know how this is going these days, but driving for Uber, and lately there's been a lot of people that are like doing grocery and food delivery, things like that. There's these the little side ventures that you can have. Uh, let's say that you have a day job today, and you also have this side venture you do on your off hours, to earn extra money, extra cash, paying down debts, whatever you're doing. Well, let's say you lose your day job. Do you think maybe that kind of side venture you could do more of to survive and weather that storm? Absolutely. A lot of things like that make a lot of sense because they're still, like I said, your effort is almost always going to be the most rate of return, almost always. So that's something to keep in mind too, is that having a side job, even though you're working for someone else and you're not getting the lion's share of anything at that point, but it is side revenue, and that can be kind of so part of that balancing act. And so that's something to consider as well. Um, there's a lot of people that are doing a lot with selling things online or just in person. And that's something that is another good either side or full-time venture, honestly. But yeah, so we're talking about like my wife makes leather goods, and she's really talented at it, really good at it. And so she is now selling those in a store. And that's the interesting thing about this, and then what I love about this is she is selling them in a place that she doesn't have to be at. She just puts her wares up in this mercantile, and she doesn't have to be there to do the transactions. I love that. That's really kind of a brilliant thing. And so the people that buy it are blessed and excited, but at the same time, she is able to work on other things while that's going on. And so she is benefiting. Now, is she getting all of what the potential could be? No, but she's also getting exposure to a lot more market than she would necessarily on her own. That doesn't require much effort for her at all, except for just to keep those stocked up. So I think that's just a great way to do things. But there's also selling things online, like the things you make, the works of your hand. But there's also selling other people's things. There's also selling um, like these little like oils and stuff like that. That's something that many people will do either as a side thing or whatever. I have a few friends that are photographers. I used to DJ weddings, and that was my side job. So it was like, okay, that's something that primarily is on the weekends. Most events are on the weekends, so it's something I didn't have to interrupt my day job to do, and so that was something I did for a number of years until my back didn't allow me to do it anymore. But yeah, that was another example of some service I could provide and something I was good at. And so and it was fun. And it wasn't something where I could quit my day job. Trust me, that wasn't really in the cards. Same thing with like selling other people's products, like this the classic Tupperware thing or Avon. Oh my gosh, what is going on with this camera? Sorry. But at the same time, it's something where you just have something else just in case. You can get yourself up a emergency fund, build that up, pay down debts. That it makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. So my encouragement to you in all this is not to just do one thing for your for the work of your hands. I really do want to see people reaching out with multiple ways of doing things just because you don't know what the future holds. You don't know what is coming. And so if that's something that you want to talk to me more about, feel free to message me. You can email me at dj@djeshelman.com. I know it's a risk to give out my uh, email address, but whatever. Go ahead and do that. Or you can just message me on whatever platform you're currently viewing this on, and I'll be able to respond to that. And we can set up a time to talk more about this and talk about what options might work best for you and how to go forward from there. So that's something that I'm offering to you with free of charge. It's not something I'm going to be worried about charging you for. It's something that I'll do as my service to you. And if that's something that makes you want to work with me down the road, well, we'll evaluate that. But that's not for everybody. So, but that is something that I'm making available. So if that's something that interests you as a Christian entrepreneur or wannabe entrepreneur or a side venture, whatever that looks like, message me and we'll see if I can figure something out that would work for you and get a plan together and see what we can do to take action on that. So that's what I have for you guys today. So thanks for taking the time to view this today. I appreciate that. And if there's anything else I can do for you in the meantime, let me know. But I think I'm going to close up the video today. No comments live here, so I don't have to worry about any questions. But if you have any questions, go ahead and put those in the comments. There's a delay. I mean, I'm not on social media a great deal right now for very obvious reasons. At least I hope obvious reasons. But I'm not on social media a whole lot right now. So if there's anything I can do for you, let me know. But just be patient. It may be a little bit before I respond to you. And if I miss it completely, just message me again or direct message me. Is probably the better way to go about this. That is something that I do have constant access to. So feel free to do that. So I hope this was helpful for you today, and I will see you Monday. Monday is when the next one is scheduled. When is that? Let me pull that up real quick here. So that is Monday at noon. So the same time as this one. I will see you Monday. Have yourself a great and blessed day, and we'll talk soon.